What's going on, Bengals fans? Chris Daughtry back with you guys here for another edition of Bengals Breakdown. We are doing a mailbag on today's video. We posted on the community side of the YouTube page just the other day. Asked you guys to put your questions, comments, concerns, hot takes, whatever it is down there in the comments, and we're going to be getting to some of those questions and comments here on today's video. So if you guys want us to continue doing these mailbags, make sure you get down there and like today's video for me. It would just be another video that we end up putting out, throughout the week here. And I'd love to, get you guys more involved in our shows as well, because at the end of the day, we are chat sports because we want to talk to you guys and get your opinions on these teams as well. So make sure you get down there and like today's show. All right, the first question here from Jesse saying, did the Bengals make a mistake letting Lou Anarumo go? How is Lou doing so well in Indianapolis when he couldn't do the same thing for the Bengals last season? I don't think it was a mistake that you ended up letting Lou Anarumo go. I think they had to make a move at the end of the day. And I say that because they weren't going to fire Zac Taylor last year. I think the best move you probably could have made was to fire Zac Taylor, but that wasn't going to happen. So something at the end of the day had to happen, and you just couldn't run it back with what you had, the previous couple of seasons on defense. I don't think Lou Anarumo was the problem. I want to make that absolutely clear. I do not think he was the main problem for the defense last year. I think personnel really was the bigger issue more than scheme, for that Bengals defense. And, for the most part, they kind of did run it back personnel-wise on defense. There was some, turnover from last year. A couple guys aren't on the team. They got some new guys in terms of draft picks and things like that. But, not as much as there probably needed to be, especially in the back end of this defense. So, was firing Lou Anarumo a mistake? I don't necessarily think so. Was Lou Anarumo the main problem on this Bengals team last year? No, I absolutely don't think that. I think both things can be true there. You have Al Golden now, and you're still the number 31 scoring defense in the NFL. I think it's more about, the Bengals just aren't good at being talent evaluators, I think, is the main issue, which we'll get to here at the end of today's show as well, which, a lot of that does fall on the head coach, but it does fall on the ownership as well, because you only have, I think, 2 scouts in the front office right now. So I want to hear from you guys, though. Was firing Lou Anarumo last season a mistake by this Bengals team? Let me know what you think. Type Y for yes or N for no down at the pinned comment of today's video. All right, question number 2 here from Nicholas. The Bengals would be absolute fools to trade Trey Hendrickson. They have 0 pass rushing without him, and it definitely was apparent when Trey left that game on Thursday against the Steelers. I 1,000% agree with you. I do not want the Bengals to trade Trey Hendrickson. The only reason why we keep bringing it up on, these trade rumors videos is because, NFL insiders and NFL media continues to mention Trey Hendrickson in these trade rumors, but it's kind of funny. They mention Trey Hendrickson as the number 1 trade candidate in the NFL, but in the reasoning, it usually said that the Bengals aren't, looking to shop Trey Hendrickson right now. So I don't know how 2 things can really be the same thing, but, I totally do agree with you. He is your best player on defense right now. And without him, the Bengals would have pretty much 0 pass rush. All right, another one here from Chris the Ninja. He's got a couple here that I want to get to on today's video, saying Cam Taylor-Britt isn't that bad. Does he get burned on plays sometimes? Yes. Does he get interceptions in PBUs? Also, yes. Look at the last game. Jamar Chase had Jalen Ramsey looking like Eli Apple. This is why I love the show, because we get to disagree sometimes on the show, and this is definitely one that I disagree with. Look, Cam Taylor-Britt last year gave up 10 touchdowns according to Pro Football Focus, and let's be completely honest, everybody gets cooked by, Jamar Chase. So I don't really think, correlation, causation there. I don't really think that's a fair assessment on that. When it comes to Jamar Chase, he kind of reminds me of, that great line from Julio Jones, early in his career. He said, call me Waffle House because I'm always open. I get it. Defensive backs, they get beat. That's part of the job. But, when he's in there, he is just constantly getting picked on. He is like the only corner on this Bengals team that when he is playing, they just constantly attack him because they know he is the, weakest link in terms of the back end right now on this Bengals defense. At least the past 2 years, it's been the case anyways. He was pretty decent his first 2 years of the season or in his career. You saw some flashes from him, but, I kind of think it's time to trade Cam Taylor-Britt or just let him go after the season. He's had his opportunities, and he's just not getting better. The other day, I don't remember exactly who it was, tweeted out that Cam Taylor-Britt was getting some, practice on special teams. So, we'll see if he's still able to contribute for this Bengals team. Maybe they're trying to, if you're not going to, be able to contribute on defense, you got to be able to contribute on special teams. So we'll see if he ends up sticking around. All right, we'll continue with some more questions from Chris here in just a second. But today's show is brought to you by Prize Picks. You and I make decisions every single day, but on Prize Picks, being right can get you paid. Don't miss any of the excitement this football season on Prize Picks, where it is good to be right. Prize Picks is the only app that offers stacks, meaning that you can pick the same player up to 3 times in the same lineup. You want to pick more than on Josh Allen's passing yards, rush yards, and touchdowns? Now you can pick all of them in the same lineup only on Prize Picks. This is the power play that producer Aiden put together for us this week. Going with Breece Hall, more than rushing yards at 69.5. Joe Flacco, more than 1.5 passing touchdowns. And T. Higgins, hopefully he can have another big game this weekend against the Jets. Going with a more than on him for 52.5 receiving yards. Prize Picks is super simple to play. You just pick more or less on at least 2 player stats, and if you get your picks right, you could cash in today. Play Prize Picks to get action on football in more than 40 different states, including California, Texas, and Georgia. So download the Prize Picks app today and use promo code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's promo code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That link's down in the comment section and the description of today's video. Prize Picks. It's good to be right. All right, so got another comment here from Chris the Ninja talking about the Bengals tackles that they have right now. Both Amarius Mims, really just talking about Amarius Mims right here. He's saying Amarius Mims is not a good tackle. He's just slow off the football, isn't settled enough to handle the pass rushers that we have to go against, and it forces the rest of the offensive line to cover for him. He can't pick up stunts, and it kills us on simple blitzes. I don't totally disagree with this. Amarius Mims definitely has struggled a little bit at times this season. He is in year 2, so I do think he still does deserve a little bit of, more time to really acclimate to the NFL. When the Bengals drafted him, he was always going to be, a project, and I think you still see that here in year 2. But he definitely isn't the worst offensive lineman that the Bengals have right now. I think Orlando Brown has, just been really, really bad this year overall. He's getting beat all the time. You can take the grades with a little bit of a grain of salt there. Amarius Mims definitely isn't playing at a, super high level right now. But, man, if you're talking about the tackles, I would bring up Orlando Brown before I brought up Amarius Mims here because, you're definitely going to have to go out in the NFL draft next season and get another offensive tackle there because Orlando Brown is also going to be a free agent as well, and hopefully you can just get through the rest of the season with him. All right, what position do you think the Bengals will draft in the first round of next year's NFL draft? Let me know what you guys think down in the comments section of today's show. All right, here's the third one from Chris. He had just a really long comment, so I wanted to get a couple of them in here. Saying Chase Brown is fast, but he is not big enough to be a good running back 1, and Semaje Perine should take over, or at least switch to a 2 running back system where Perine and Brown play, and we have a power and speed combo. I totally agree with you on this one here. I am all for some more Semaje Perine. I have, consistently asked for Semaje Perine to get more carries in this Bengals offense over, the past couple of weeks now. Chase Brown, he had a really good game against the Steelers. I even thought he had a pretty decent game against the Packers a couple of weeks ago, as well there. They just really didn't run the ball that much in that game. I think he averaged 9.8 yards against the Steelers, and it was like 4.7 against the Packers there. I do think the addition of Joe Flacco is starting to open up this offense a little bit more, and the defense can't just play man-to-man and stack the boxes and sell out on the run plays. Early in the season, he was getting hit in the backfield pretty much every single time he touched the ball. At one point in the first couple of games, he actually had more yards after contact than he just had, total net yards. That means you're getting hit in the backfield a lot, and that falls on the offensive line. But, I do agree that I would love to see some more Semaje Perine get the ball more for this Bengals offense right now. But I don't want to totally, discount Chase Brown either. I think he's a really good running back. We talked in the preseason whether or not he was top 10. I don't really know about that, but I do think the addition of Joe Flacco has really helped out the run game for this Bengals team. All right, the last one here from Bryson. And Bryson actually, man, he wrote a thesis statement about how to fix this Bengals team. So we just actually picked one of the things from Bryson here. First off, he said, I like the draft. I believe enough in the linebacker pair to feel that we don't have to pick, talking about the linebackers in the first 4 rounds, unless a great one falls in our lap for at least the next 3 years. I don't really think that's probably going to happen either. Continues on saying, and there's some great drafts coming up in the next couple of years that, not having a glaring need at value-lacking positions is going to be a good thing because you can focus, or at least hopefully focus, to go get an edge or a safety. Maybe even a great corner as well for this Bengals team. I think my big question for this is, do you believe that this coaching staff and this front office can make good evaluations? We talked about it at the beginning of the video today. The Bengals have so many needs, especially on the defensive side of the ball, that you would love to be able to fix in the draft. The problem is they just don't really, play the, draft compensation game very well. They don't stack up on those draft picks. They don't have an abundance of picks, especially inside the top 100. That if you wanted to do that, where you start adding more top 100 picks, that would mean you have to start trading some star players, and they don't really have an abundance of star players on this team right now to be able to trade to get multiple top 100 draft picks. They would have to essentially blow it all up and start from scratch here. And if you ended up doing that, you got to fire Zac Taylor and let a new coach really start that rebuild here. You got Joe Burrow, you got Jamar Chase, you have Trey Hendrickson, maybe even T. Higgins can get you a couple top 100 draft picks as well. I don't think anybody wants to trade those guys, and I don't want to trade them either. But, I am with you. I would love to be able to draft a corner, a tackle, in the first round or two in this year's NFL draft. You're going to need a couple guards as well. I would love to be able to get a safety in this year's draft too, but unless you lose a bunch of games, you're probably not going to be able to tank for a guy like Caleb Downs. He's definitely the best safety in this year's draft class. So I think they probably even need another edge rusher as well. Joseph Osai is going to be a free agent after this year. So, it's like 50-50 right now under Zac Taylor on even being able to hit on those top 100 picks. You go back a couple weeks ago, we talked about it in one of our overreaction videos, and I don't think it's all Zac Taylor's fault when it comes to not hitting on some of those top 100 draft picks. The Bengals only have 2 scouts in their front office, and that's it. You need more help in the front office in terms of having a scouting department, not just 2 people having to scout the NFL and college. You look at some other teams out there. I think the Eagles, I went back and counted, their scouting department. They had like 18 people in their scouting department. It is absolutely insane. They have guys that scout the NFL, scout college football, college football scouting director, East Coast, West Coast, South, North, everything. They've got guys everywhere. Being able to watch guys in person, and you definitely do need a little bit more help to be able to consistently hit on those top 100 picks. It does, it's a little bit on Zac Taylor, but I do think it falls on the ownership as well.